So, before we start, you'll note that I'm going to be censoring stuff quite aggressively moving forwards. As in, if I'm in any doubt, it's getting a black box. Because Volume 4 is where this manga really starts getting rough. Not just in terms of the gore, but in terms of nudity. So if there's even a hint of a booba or a side booba or a back booba, it's getting censored. Because YouTube is absolute death on this stuff right now, and by the sounds of it, they're going around nuking channels over some pretty petty stuff. And that's not to say that Volume 4 is only shocking because of the nudity. In fact, I would say that it's the first entirely made in Abyss volume of quite a few to come. And this is, at the end of the day, a story designed to take hardcore fans of dark manga and turn them from this into this. What do I mean? Well, you'll see. You'll all see. So, where were we? Oh right, we cut forward a short but indeterminate distance in time. Reg wakes to see a now up and about Riko doing something with Nnaaa, and we get a sequence of panels that, honestly, let's just take a look, because these are amazing, but in a fairly subtle way. It's all in the expressions. Riko turns, sees Reg, then takes a moment to gather herself, smiles, and greets him. That's, yeah man, say what you like about Tsukushi being a gigantic pervy weirdo that probably needs to be on a whole bunch of watch lists, but the man knows his stuff. Turns out that Riko is teaching Nnaaa to cook. And that's all, I swear. Okay. Before your mind goes where apparently about half the internet's minds went, there is actually a lot of weirdness with Reg and Riko constantly touching and snuggling up to everyone's second favorite floof monster. Yes, her accepted, we'll get to her. Which Nnaaa complains about from time to time, as apparently their touching can be, a little lewd. And at the time, this led folks to surmise an attraction or more between either Reg and Nnaaa, or Riko and Nnaaa, but mostly the former. However, as we'll learn later, Nnaaa didn't just gain a pleasing form, she also gained an irresistible scent. And yes, that image is real. Japan is just such an odd place sometimes. The why of this aroma, well, we will get to that later. According to Tsukushi, it smells a bit like candy floss. Which, yes, would be cotton candy if you live in America. He did explain in an interview, though, that it's not what people think. Apparently, Reg and Riko's constant touching is actually just an almost infantile, tactile fascination with the creature. And nothing more, you weird, thirsty people out there who, for some reason, really want to see robot on kangaroo porn. I swear the internet was a mistake. Also, does food in anime and manga always manage to look better than any real food, or is it just that I haven't eaten breakfast yet? Yeah. Imagine not being able to find 10 minutes to eat food. Ha, parenthood. Regardless, this is actually a pretty sweet scene that isn't spelled out for the audience at all. See, Nnaaa was a street kid who basically survived eating garbage. As a hollow, she had no idea how to prepare food, and while she knew enough to put heat to meat, she didn't clean or prepare the carcass at all, and so it was inevitably disgusting and tasted like poo. So Riko, a double black diamond survivalist cook, has taken the Floofykins under her wing and is teaching her how to prepare a meal within the abyss, leading to another fantastic panel. Ah, Nnaaa got ratatouille'd. That's just awesome. Oh, and we jump into another sequence that I'd totally forgotten about until this reread, but I have to wonder if this is going to be important later. We see that Riko is having, or at least had, a very odd coma dream. She was trapped underground in a claustrophobic, constricting place. And okay, I am going to have a stab at interpreting this, but as I may be wrong, I'm curious to what Pooty or you folks think this is all about. I have a feeling that she is seeing what Mitty's transformation must have felt like from her side, being compressed, crushed, and ripped apart, losing the ability to communicate and all sense of self. However, she then encounters another child in this strange dreamscape, experiencing similar torment, until Riko smells burning and the child stops crying. This must have been Reg doing, that. Jeez Louise, this manga man. Oh, and we then get to see, what the hell is that? That is freaky as balls. I think it's supposed to be Mitty's soul, and after all of that is done, Riko was left with a sense that they would meet again. Well then.
Oh, thanks, Freddy, foreshadowing.
Reg reminds us about Riko's resurrection, and that she probably has a unique connection to the Abyss, and I forgot just how much cryptic foreshadowing these early to middle volumes contained. Made in Abyss, even though the first few volumes are rather a bit slow in places, it is still astonishing how much story is packed into this thing and how clearly Tsukushi knew where at least some parts of the story were going right from the get-go. That's just quality writing, that. Regardless, now that Riko has at least partially recovered, the trio spend some time together. At some point, Nnaaa takes them to a special hidden hot spring, which again, was actually another pretty gorgeous little zone in the game. However, this sequence is just all sorts of weird and uncomfortable, as there's a lot of nudity and innuendo. It's really awkward, so everyone in favor of skipping? Yep, great idea. Sometime later, the parasitic mushrooms are being removed in another unnecessarily gross sequence that I'm not going to show you here. Spoiler, we don't see much gore, but we do get to watch Riko piss herself, so no thanks. However, we also get to see the results of Nnaachi's ministrations. While the hand was retained, and the thumb is capable of some limited movement, the rest of Riko's hand is now mostly a useless chunk of meat. thanks to severe nerve damage, mostly inflicted during Reg's battlefield surgery. However, Riko remains upbeat. Oh yeah, this bit is kind of fun too. Riko asks Nnaaa if she would consider joining their party. Damn it, Nnaaa, you're really adorable. And she basically just says K. Aww. While Riko and Reg are overjoyed, he privately suspects that despite her claim that it's to somehow satisfy Mitty, it might actually be because of Riko's cooking. Which, again, yeah, a really charming little sequence. I suspect that it's deliberately so, because if you really want to scar people, you need to set them up first. You know, lull them into a false sense of security. It's why this show scared so much crap out of kids. Still, excited to be back on her way down to the bottom of the abyss, Riko cheers, and after the party, makes a few final preparations, including Nnaaa building a pretty damn impressive brace for Riko's maimed hand. Wait, when did Nnaaa become such an engineering whiz? Regardless, soon it's time for the party, now with an additional member to depart, with a last look at her home. Nnaaa and the others leave, striking out for the depths of Layer 4, and beyond that, the mysterious subterranean ocean of Layer 5. Oh, you. If only you knew what was waiting for you there.
The horror. The horror.
Sometime later, we rejoin the party as they work their way through the spiral ice pillars and emerge onto a small plateau and an incredible sight. An enormous field of flowers covering an immense expanse of rolling hills, spreading out and away as far as the eye can see. A place known as the Garden, marking the middle point of Layer 4. Reg immediately remembers this place from his dream of Liza's burial mound, but is snapped back to reality by the sudden awareness of something. Sure enough, it's a party of cave raiders. By the looks of it, they're in some trouble. Oh, and this is also interesting. We learn that Nnaaa is capable of reading not only the ebb and flow of curse and force field, but also the emotions of others. Wait, what? Okay, Tsukushi, I guess I'll roll with it for now, but I do hope that this stuff gets explained one day. Riko, however, calls a warning. Looking through a telescope, she spots this weird-looking bastard, carrying some sort of contraption on its back, making its way over to the stricken raider group. Nnaaa identifies him as a Black Whistle tier cave raider, part of Bondrewd's squad, the Umbra Hands. Reg, remembering Nnaachi's horrific story, prepares to, straight up fire on the stranger with the incinerator, which, oh yeah, I was waiting for a good place to work this in, but a more accurate translation for the Japanese name of this weapon is cremation cannon, which is just so metal. Why didn't we go with that? But the Umbra Hand moves so fast that it appears he vanished, reappearing right in front of Reg. Oh, you're so outclassed right now, it's not even funny. Reg, nonetheless, appears game for a scrap, but the strange man tosses him Oh right, Riko lost Blaze Reap a bit back. Did you forget about it? Don't worry, I think the story did too. And warns them that this area is off limits, and to be quiet, lest the party wake them. Yeah, it is entirely possible to pronounce a capital letter sometimes. Nnaaa tells Reg to stand down. This is not a fight that they would be capable of winning right now. A black whistle would be a touch beyond their capabilities. However, she also wonders to herself how long Bondrewd must have been watching them. Reg asks the hand what the hell he's doing, but he doesn't respond. Riko spots something weird amongst the flowers. A large, vicious-looking insect, camouflaged as a leaf. We cut back over to Reg at the campsite, and he balks as he sees, oh, what the hell is that? An eyeless, delirious cave raider with a partially eaten away face. And the Umbra hand explains. The bug that Riko saw is part of a colony of similar nasty critters, unbelievably dangerous and very similar to parasitoid wasps. These are called amaranthine deceptors. Oh, and more weirdness. According to the Umbra hand, these creatures have utterly infested the entire flower garden, but they do not belong up on layer 4. They are a much deeper threat and are very out of place here. Even stranger, he says that they are lying doggo and waiting for a signal? Nope, I don't think that the manga has ever explained this as of yet, and I have no idea what the hell is going on. But, as Riko confirms, it appears that these creatures have been cultivated by someone. Wakuna, Srajo, Liza? Nope, no idea. Regardless, amaranthine deceptors are pretty much an existential threat, especially if they were to infest the upper layers. They lay their larvae inside living creatures and are kept alive for as long as possible as a sort of living incubator. Before they can say anything, the Umbra hand reveals what was on his back as he flicks on a frigging flamethrower and flares the entire flower field in another just utterly beautiful and yet strangely eerie scene. I know this one is a fan favorite, so I would be remiss in not showing you. Reg yells at him that there was a party of cavers still, I guess, mostly alive down there, and prepares to go in on the attack, although he might have meant that he wanted to go in and attempt to rescue them. We'll go with the former as it's cooler, and yeah, the Umbra hand basically turns to him and goes, "You what?" before telling him to beat feet and go back to his friends. Oh, and that Bondrewd is waiting for them down below. That's not good. The party narrowly escapes the conflagration and are left looking down onto the once tranquil field, now a sea of fire. And yes, if the flower field burning isn't a perfect analogy for this entire manga, I am honestly not sure what would be. The party makes camp, and Nnaaa explains what lies ahead. Down below Layer 4 is the beautiful and dangerous Layer 5. However, that's where things get tricky. There is only one entrance to Layer 6, and that entrance lies at the heart of Edo Front, an enormous fortress belonging to Bondrewd himself. Nnaaa warns the party that, in order to get down below, some sort of encounter with the sinister mad scientist White Whistle is likely to be unavoidable. Yeah, remember when I called this manga anxiety porn? This is the sort of stuff I am referring to. Sure enough, now at the very bottom of Layer 4, the party catches their first glimpse of Layer 5 in another utterly perfect panel, staring at the hellish way down. A chaotic, skeletal-looking ridgeline of crystalline walkways plunging down into an almost infinitely big waterfall. I will say that, while I do like the anime adaptation of Made in Abyss a lot, a big part of why is the stuff that is excluded more than the adaptation in and of itself. And one of the things that I consider to be a substantial downgrade is the geography and appearance of Layer 5. It's hard to express, but there's something lost in translation here in regards to the scale and general alienness of this place. They carefully begin making their way down, and at some point, Reg takes a dip into the ocean and catches a... yeah, I'm just gonna say it. That's a penis fish, looking like something out of From a Buick 8. But apparently it's really tasty, when eaten as sashimi. And we get another nice little break as the party eats. Oh, and Riko's sure that the bottom of the abyss must be a wonderful place? Huh? Why? No, seriously, girlie. What in the past 3 volumes has given you any indication that the abyss isn't going to be some kind of Lovecraftian nightmare? We see the party make their way down through Layer 5, a bizarre alien biome consisting of huge expanses of fathomless turbulent water, precarious bone-like crystalline structures, which we're later informed is crystallized water? So ice? No, and as far as I know, that's never explained. As well as white, almost snow-like sandbars. They finally reach an outcrop and look down, out, and over their destination. The immense circular fortress of Edo Front. At its center, a beam of light punches skywards, marking the mysterious descent down through the subterranean ocean to Layer 6 and the lower abyss. Oh, and it's not terribly obvious here, but that big weird cylinder above the fortress, that's all water, somehow suspended in the sky. Well, for a given value of sky. We do get a bit of exposition, courtesy of Nnaaa, but nothing especially important. Just reminding the reader of stuff mentioned previously, and without any other options, the trio start cautiously making their way down towards the fortress. Assumably, they intend to try and slip in, avoid detection, and sneak over to the entrance to Layer 6. Yeah, all of you, tread very carefully here. As they approach the fortress, Nnaaa tells Reg that if his origin truly is the lower abyss, he must have swum up through the ocean as he is both curse immune and does not need to breathe. As they sneak, they are startled when they hear a footstep. They turn and see that it's this character, a young girl with an odd hat and strange, almost Ozen-like hair, marking her as a long-time resident of the Abyss. Yup, meet Prushka, a character that people who have read this before or watched the anime are immediately grimacing about because, yeah. Without any spoilers, this character makes people cry like the ending of The Green Mile. We will get there. Oh, and note, Prushka asks the party if they are Papa's guests. Regardless, she escorts them into the fortress, and with no other option presenting itself, they reluctantly follow. Making their way in, we see that they are all quite rightfully leery of the chatty little newcomer, due to the fact that they are essentially being led into the lion's den here. But she seems earnest enough, even hurt by their suspicions, and, well, she does rapidly win them over, and they all exchange names. However, as Nnaaa is about to respond, she feels a deep chill come over her as Prushka turns, shouts, and happily rushes over to her papa. Well, shit. Sure enough, Prushka's papa is Bondrewd himself, who emerges, flanked by a large number of his intimidating Umbra Hand minions. Yup, here we go. Meet Bondrewd. If Nnaaa is the fan-favorite character and unofficial series mascot, then this dude is definitely the runner-up. And yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. With his resonant, almost at times sepulchral voice, impeccable manners, and strange, paradoxical elegance. I mean, the dude wears a frigging cravat over steampunk armor. That's just baller. Bondrewd is a creature of contradictions. But aside from that, he also, without a doubt, has one of the coolest designs I have ever seen. The intricate armor, the awesome vertical light of his faceplate, and yeah, we'll get into more when it comes up, but remember when I said that Ozen was one of two characters that I found it difficult to really get a handle on? Yeah, Bondrewd is the second. And this, right here, is one of the reasons why. He immediately approaches a terrified Nnaaa and greets her with genuine warmth, expressing joy that they were able to euthanize Mitty and move on. He does honestly seem really happy to see her. Yeah, this is a bit confusing. Reg isn't having any of it though, and angrily begins to confront him before Nnaaa desperately grabs him and tries to stop him. Kind of like that one drunk mate who has a tendency to get into arguments with bikers. Instead, she tells Bondrewd that they don't want any trouble and are only passing through. To Rico and Reg's astonishment, Bondrewd appears nonchalant, saying that they can go right ahead. But he does ask them exactly what their plan was, and reminds us of something that the audience, and by the looks of it the characters, seem to have forgotten. To move down beyond Layer 5 requires a white whistle. The relic, not the person, and not just any white whistle at that. See, a white whistle can only be used by its original owner, whatever that means. Rico, thus, cannot use Liza's whistle to get beyond the boundary, meaning that even if Bondrewd were to let them access the gateway, there is no way for them to move down further beyond Layer 5. I honestly have no idea what their plan was, and by the sounds of it, neither does Rico. Even more shocking to all present, though, is Bondrewd's treatment of Prushka. The evil mad scientist does seem to be genuinely affectionate towards her, and indeed rather fatherly, with the bond between them seeming legitimately wholesome. What in the hell is going on? Don't worry, all this weirdness will make sense eventually. Kind of. Anyway, to let the party rest and to give them time to mull things over, Bondrewd offers the trio rooms in Edo Front, saying that he prepared those in advance. But without any other obvious options, the party follows Prushka in, who shows them to their quarters and also explains to be careful of the toilets, as falling in would be lethal. Yeah, Tsukushi, there's a sequel manga in there that I want to read. She also reminds them to beware the stairs, as the curse on Layer 5 is no joke, even compared to that on Layer 4. We also get to see that Rico and Prushka are rapidly becoming firm friends. Prushka, as it so happens, has spent her entire life in the abyss, having never seen the surface, and this leads to a really entertaining exchange about the dawn. However, we do get to see that despite the irrepressible newcomer, the party, but in particular Nnaaa, are still very much ill at ease. It doesn't quite click with her that Bondrewd could have been experimenting on kids in such a cavalier and horrific fashion, while his daughter, yes, before anyone corrects me, we do learn later that she is adopted, who he does legitimately seem to care about, was down here. And you know what? If I was to be honest, I don't fully understand this either, but we will go into this more in the next volume. In short, Nnaaa suspects that Prushka might be some sort of Judas goat. He says, realizing that he grew up on farms and basically nobody will know what that means. Yeah, there's something for you to Google, chaps and chapettes. Judas goat. It's really interesting. Yes, I am a dad now, and that means I can give you homework. While Rico and Prushka chat, Nnaaa and Reg are having their own little get-together. The pair realize that Reg's incinerator, or yes, cremation cannon, see, Nnaaa uses it here, and damn it I love that name, is absurdly powerful, even more so than Reg and Rico had initially guessed. It appears not only capable of blasting the hell out of things, but it's so powerful that it can straight up burn things out of reality, rewriting the rules of the abyss. So it's basically balefire. Cool. However, this power does come at a price. It drains an inordinate amount of energy to fire, and based on Nnaachi's experience with relics and a symbol that appears on Reg's helmet LCD thing, she estimates that he still has 3 shots remaining to him at max. Once all 3 are depleted, Reg will be fully drained and will likely become totally inert. So yeah, that's not good. Reg worries about how he'll protect them from Bondrewd if needed, to which Nnaachi has no response. We cut over to some time later that night, if that term has any relevance this deep in the abyss. Nnaachi realizes how bad their predicament is. Things could go sideways very, very fast here. And worse, there's no way to push forward now, as they lack the white whistle they would need to reach Layer 6. With no answer presenting itself, and frustrated with her lack of options, she, assumably, beds down to sleep alongside Rikor and Reg. And now, with everyone settling in for a nice stay at Idlefront, a place where absolutely nothing horrible is going to happen at all, the stage is set for this manga to really get moving. Yup, Tsukushi has been playing our nerves like violin strings, and it's time for things to get, well, made in Abyss again. Before that begins, I think we would all be better off for a quick break. Hey folks, this is the Owl. Ever feel like you need more owl in your life? Enjoy watching middle-aged men get the butt pains about losing at video games? Like chatting about anime, manga, comics, movies, games, food, science, and, I don't know, the news while doing so? Well, why not sign up to our Twitch? We stream every week on Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons, as well as random streams throughout the week. You might even hear Baby Owl being adorable. Oh, and if you're interested in something different, but particularly Dungeons and Dragons, Mrs. Owl now has a channel of her own. Go and check it out, it is going to be amazing. As always, all links are in the description. Anyways, back to the nightmare. Our perspective shifts over to Rikor, who wakes up deep in the night, needing to go and shake the lettuce. She looks around, wondering where her friends are. Uh-oh. But stumbles out, bleary-eyed, looking for the Kazi. Now, as we proceed into the latter half of Volume 4, and we go again from cutesy adventure to anxiety porn to sheer and utter nightmare, I want you to keep a close eye on the artwork, because I cannot give Tsukushi enough credit for just how well he does this stuff. Not just in terms of raw art or his always top-notch paneling, but in terms of his line work and coloring, and how he changes style as the tone and mood of the manga shift. When things are happy, or at least benign, we get a soft, almost children's bedtime story feel. Gentle shading and shadows, and solid coloring. However, when things get ominous, or we begin to switch into horror, we get much harsher lines, an almost sketchy style at times, stronger contrasts, and deep, dark blacks. It's effective. Still a bit concerned about her friends, Rikor concludes that they must have gone to the bathroom together. What? No, that's just so odd. Regardless, she does find the loo herself and, yeah, Rikor, it's one of those Japanese squatty potties. After I accidentally dunked my nuts in cold water for the 12th time, I stopped using them. But yes, in reality, she's probably worried about Prushka's story about man-eating toilets or whatever that was. A bit later, after she, to be honest, she probably found a quiet corner somewhere, we see that Rikor is now getting extremely worried about Reg and Nnaaa, and she has started to explore the almost deserted seeming base, but she doesn't find them. After a time, The only path she hasn't explored is the stairs and the upstairs area. Oh no, Riko, don't you even think about it. Remember what Prushka... Oh yeah, you're doing it. Riko climbs the stairs because Riko is occasionally a complete idiot. She reasons that the 5th layer curse, total sensory deprivation, and allegedly self-injurious behavior don't sound anywhere near as bad as hemorrhage and agony on layer 4. But she does prepare to sit down in the stairwell immediately if she feels the curse coming on. But it doesn't, and so she continues up. Oh yes, there's one thing to correct from my last video. In the game, the curses were cumulative. For instance, if you got hit by the curse on layer 4, you would also get the effects of layers 1 through 3. However, the manga does not operate under this rule. Each layer's curse is distinct and bound within that layer. Riko continues to climb up, keeps going, and suddenly she feels something choking her. She reaches into her mouth and pulls out, oh what the hell, because this manga is literally recreating my nightmares, its several shattered teeth. She then notices that something is not quite right. The darkness around her appears to be shifting, reaching out and opening deep slashes in her body, but there's no pain. Realizing that this must somehow be the 5th layer curse at work, Riko prepares to sit down, but she can't find down or back. And yeah, the entire manga starts tripping orb-piercer balls as Riko loses all sense of direction, sensation, and self as her consciousness begins to implode in a very cool sequence of panels. She wakes up hearing Prushka calling her name. It turns out that her new friend heard her screaming and came to her aid. She explains what happened, at least from her perspective. Riko, not realizing that she'd been cursed or much of anything at the time, had unwittingly fallen straight down the stairs and badly messed herself up. See, Riko, you need to listen. The layer 5 curse is really frigging nasty. Prushka explains a bit more. People affected by this curse grind their teeth and shatter them, and will go right on messing themselves up without realizing it until they are literally dead. What a terrifying prospect. Riko does explain why she went out and tried to climb the stairs, and Prushka agrees to help her look after she does, admitting that, yeah, something here is very wrong. The entire base is locked down. They will indeed have to take the stairs. But what about the curse? Well, Prushka reveals that she has a way around it, and reveals that she carries a small creature under her hat that... Wait, hang on, that's Patamon from Digimon. What the hell? No, of course it's not, but those designs are uncannily similar. This is Mania, Prushka's pet. It's a weirdly off-putting, stinky little thing that apparently was inspired by the smelly old parrot that Tsukushi's family once owned. That's just really funny, to be honest. And this is explained a bit later, but assumably breathing Mania's dust makes you temporarily immune to the curse. Are these creatures rare or something? Because that strikes me as really useful for cave raiders. With Mania's help, the pair ascends, and Riko asks the obvious question. What the hell is up with Prushka and her ostensible father, Bondrewd? She responds that she absolutely adores her dad, and that he dotes on her. Yeah, again, Bondrewd is a confusing character. Depending on who you ask, he's either ingeniously and fiendishly complex, or he's completely inconsistent and incoherent in terms of his character and motivations. We will do a proper character drill down maybe next volume, because the one thing Bondrewd is weird, and we've barely even scratched the surface of said weirdness. That said, as I hinted at earlier, yeah, Made in Abyss has 3 sequences that I genuinely struggle to get through. There's that bit in volume 3, another bit coming later, yeah, just watch out for this character, oh boy, and the bit that comes next. Okay, let's do this. We shift over to see Nnaaa and Bondrewd, and is it just me, or is this panel kind of weird? I'm not sure what it is, maybe the compositing. Anyways, we get some clarification. Prushka is indeed adopted, and after Nnaaa asks the inevitable question, Bondrewd pontificates about love for a bit. Yeah, again, weird, confusing character. We do get some more information about the other white whistles though. Both Surajo and Wakuna are down in the lower abyss, and Bondrewd implies that both have the ability to access Layer 6 while bypassing Edo Front. However, Bondrewd does drop some interesting tidbits too. The other white whistles, as per the last dive, are now stuck in the lower abyss. But Bondrewd's research, yeah, remember that horror show has progressed to the point where he has a way around this. Somehow, Bondrewd can head down to Layer 6 and safely return to Layer 5. While she tries not to show it, this discussion plunges Nnaaa even further into despair. Her last hope was getting the help of one of the other white whistles to save them all from Bondrewd. And yeah, speaking of anxiety porn, this next bit really gets under my skin. Bondrewd, for reasons that will be explained later, clearly wants Nnaaa back as an assistant, and she, now utterly hopeless, agrees on the condition that he let Rico and Reg go. They need to be allowed to leave without harm, and he needs to help them to get down to Layer 6, so they can continue their quest without her. To which Bondrewd replies, whoops, well shit, and here we go. This next bit is, yeah, I can't really show you much of it. It is explicit and it is nasty. We see that Reg is being vivisected by the Umbra Hands, who have already removed one of his arms. Nnaaa barges in and they begin to swarm around her, calling out the term blessed. Remember that. They are stopped by the sudden arrival of Prushka and Rico, the latter of whom nearly passes out after seeing her friend now maimed and bleeding heavily. Prushka, in a fury, begins chewing them out and saying that she will tell her father, as these were his guests. But they appear unperturbed and instead begin advancing on her, pointing to a very nasty looking chair. Oh dears. However, before they can grab her, Prushka is suddenly yanked backwards as Rico grabs her and a briefly conscious Reg uses his remaining arm to pull them out of range, and they flee. Some time later, Reg has passed out again, and the rest are trying to figure out what the hell to do next. Nnaaa says that evidently Bondrewd planned this all out from the start. This is the reason that he allowed them to take shelter in Edo Front. It was to make them complacent enough to capture, so he could experiment on them. Without any other options, Prushka bravely agrees to stay behind and intercede on her new friend's behalf. She is convinced that some of the Umbra Hands have gone rogue, and that her father means them no harm. She leads them to a hidden jetty, and they make their escape. As they go, Prushka reveals that she wants to join them on their adventure, and the last they see of her, it's as the Umbra Hands surround her. Some time later, we see the party making landfall on a white sandbar, a goodly way away from the fortress. They have escaped, but at a serious cost. Reg's arm has been left behind, and Prushka resigned to an uncertain fate. Rikor starts to break down, but Nnaaa is furious. Yeah, Bondrewd is a straight-up bastard. She wants to come up with some sort of plan to maybe strike back at him, if possible, to save Prushka before anything bad can happen to her. And you know what? If the volume had ended right here, I would have been perfectly satisfied. But nope, we've still got one bit to come, and it is a humdinger. We see that Nnaaa is tending to a still unconscious Reg. When a large shadow falls across her, she looks up to see... oh boy. Bondrewd and several Umbra Hands are standing right behind her. Bondrewd instructs Nnaaa to come with him and offers to repair Reg if she does. She, however, responds by telling him to get bent as Rikor leaps down, swinging Blaze Reap, striking the ground and causing an immense blast. Bondrewd appears to be at least mildly surprised, but this all appears to be a part of whatever plan is being carried out. Spoiler, it's one hell of a plan, and this kicks off just, oh man, such a great sequence. As, with Bondrewd displaced, and now awake Reg winches Nnaaa and him into the air and out of the madman's reach. She taunts Bondrewd, telling him to look down as something happens. We briefly cut back in time, and in a very anime scene, you know, the bit where we retroactively see the protagonist's plan being formed, Rikor, as a certified Abyss nerd, uses her mother's notes and figures out something about the sandbar they landed on. It turns out that a huge nest of the most dangerous monster on Layer 5, colossal, ridiculously venomous, seven-tailed scorpions called Stingerheads. Dumb name, awesome monster. And sure enough, these things go through the Umbra Hands like butter, as we get to see just how dangerous their stings are, as one of them gets stung, then immediately swells, ruptures, and then essentially liquefies. Wow, that's awesomely nasty stuff. More like this, please, and less like, well, that. But we do see that Rikor can barely tear her eyes away from the carnage. Yeah, I wouldn't be horrified. Well done, you lot. That was actually dope as. We do, however, get a nifty little bit of foreshadowing as Reg tells the party that he can still feel his missing arm somehow. And with Bondrewd defeated and likely dead, they decide to pick it up from either front as they pass through. And with that, they prepare to depart. The scene shifts again over to the orphanage. Oh, hey Hubble, it's been a while, mate. He's busy lecturing some novice raiders and, coincidentally, teaching them about Bondrewd. Apparently, the mad scientist managed to revolutionize cave raiding in a wide variety of ways, not only in terms of technique, but also in terms of technology. However, the novices ask him why Bondrewd has such a dark reputation if he was so essential to the modern art of cave raiding. And Hubble reveals that it's because Bondrewd, despite being a genius, has positively no scruples, no standards or boundaries. If human experimentation is required, he will do it. If there is an outbreak, he will nuke the area. If he needs money, he will sell weaponized relics on the black market. Yeah, okay. If you squint hard enough here, Tsukushi might be making a point about some of the things Japan got up to during World War II, as there is a definite similarity between some of the things Bondrewd does and the real-life Unit 731. Don't Google it. Trust me. And before someone says that I'm reaching here, well, it wouldn't be the first time a modern mangaka made an overt reference to this. Yeah, Kohei Horikoshi, you've got some balls, mate. Anyway, we also learn from Hubble that Bondrewd, due to some of the things he's done, is a globally wanted criminal, and that there is a hefty bounty on him, but he's so absolutely and absurdly powerful that nobody even bothers trying to catch him. We also get another brilliant panel as Hubble describes Bondrewd after meeting him as something utterly inhuman, wearing a people suit. And sure enough, back in the present, something starts to happen within the pack of stingerheads. A narrow beam of light gleams out and then scythes through them, tearing them apart in an instant. And Bondrewd steps out, completely unharmed. Yup, this is another quintessentially anime moment, but it's a good one. Sometimes cliches are cliches for a reason, and the villain easily survives patently unsurvivable situation to demonstrate that they're a badass is among my favorites. Completely baffled, the trio ask Nnaaa what the hell just happened. It turns out that the beam of light was Spiragmos, Bondrewd's equivalent of Reg's incinerator. An elbow-mounted projector. Is that a reference to Guyver, by the way, rather than a hand? However, Nnaaa does notice something interesting. And remember this one for later. Spiragmos was used to maim and partially dismember the seemingly invulnerable Reg, but Bondrewd wasn't present at the time. Huh? Did he trust an underling with his best weapon? And I don't think this ever really gets explained, but I think the implication is that with Bondrewd's skill at fiddling with relics, he was probably able to somehow synthesize additional versions. Regardless, Nnaaa realizes that Bondrewd is somehow hijacking her vision. And no, at this point in the story, This too has not been explained or even really elaborated on further. Regardless, as it so happens, she has a backup plan. We also briefly cut away to see that Prushka is present, being guarded by an Umbra Hand. Bondrewd, as it so happens, is legitimately impressed by the party's ingenuity, but was aware of the stinger heads from the start. Reg moves in to attack, but Bondrewd easily deflects his strikes. Despite Reg's power and speed, the two are clearly not even in the same league. However, as it so happens, this rush was a cover for Reg to get a grenade-like relic in close, which goes off, blasting Reg back and distracting Bondrewd long enough for Reg to fire his arm out and to latch onto his gauntlet, which he then uses to haul Bondrewd's arm up and out, exposing a small gap in his armor and allowing Rico to shoot him with a crossbow bolt. He seems unperturbed, but we quickly see that this was no ordinary bolt. It was, in fact, full of amaranthine deceptor larvae. If you remember, those horrible Zerg Tyrannid bugs from earlier. And yeah, I frigging love that the party's plan is to use the Abyss itself, using their knowledge to weaponize it against the arch-villain. Before he can respond, Reg launches himself in again, driving the madman back and down into the water, preventing him from firing Sparagmos again. Then, with Bondrewd in tow, Reg's arm snakes up and we see the final part of the plan. With Nnaaa's ability to see the force fields, they were able to determine something interesting about Layer 5. Anything below the surface of the water is technically Layer 6, as Reg hauls Bondrewd up with him. Out of the water, we see that the intention is to give him a taste of poetic justice. Infested, mutating, and badly damaged, Reg seals the deal with a massive boulder. Check frigging mate, you steampunk bastard. But realizing that he just killed someone, Reg is overcome with remorse as Nnaa apologizes to him. Nonetheless, the battle is won, and the party chalk their first white whistle notch onto their belts. However, in a pretty fun and yet weirdly sad fake-out, Nnaa turns with a look of horror on her face. But it's only Prushka, oh damn, who rushes over and sobs over her dying father as the Umbra Hand from earlier comforts her. Yeah, that sucks. As she mourns her father, the large Umbra Hand behind her steps forward and, what the hell, rips the helmet off what's left of the disintegrating corpse and puts it on, then turns and, sure enough, Bondrewd the Novel, Sovereign of Dawn, introduces himself properly. Oh, and he knocks Prushka out for some reason. Nope, I have no idea why, especially learning what we learn later. As it turns out, all of this was somehow according to his plan. Through some unknown means, he must have switched out with a substitute, and, by the looks of things, a much weaker one. The entire battle, and Reg ostensibly killing him, was somehow all for Prushka's benefit. And yeah, as with so many things about this manga, it's really confusing. But on this one at least, hang in there, because we will learn at least a little bit more about this in Volume 5. And no, I promise you, if this is somehow your first encounter with Made in Abyss, well, firstly, why? And secondly, it's not what you're thinking. The party once again tries to attack him, but this time it's completely pointless. He dispatches them almost nonchalantly. Riko with complicated but let's say stun darts called shakers, and Reg with a strange tail-like appendage. We then get a brief revelation of sort of what's going on here. Bondrewd is basically Mr. Sinister. In more ways than one now that I think about it. All of the Umbra hands are somehow Bondrewd. And we will learn more about how exactly that works, you guessed it, in Volume 5. He also, however, mentions why he wants Nnaaa back. This is important, by the way. Remember the Umbra hands chanting Blessed earlier? Well, due to Mitty's willing acceptance of Nnaaa's share of the curse, Nnaaa wasn't just spared. She became something else entirely. A hollow, yes, but not the wretched mutant things like Mitty or those creatures at the bottom of the pit. Something with a high form, immunity to the curse, and the ability to perceive the abyss in entirely new ways. A creature that I've dubbed a blessed hollow. With that though, Bondrewd taunts them, telling them that they are always welcome back at Idor Front, and carrying Prushka, he takes his leave. Our last few pages of the volume cannot show you much of at all, because, well, all the nudity. But we see a naked Prushka lying on a table, looking slightly dazed but smiling, and talking to Bondrewd, with him saying that they will now never be parted, and something about seeing the dawn together. Oh, you absolute bastard. And thus ends Volume 4. I wish I could tell you that this gets less dark with Volume 5, but I will give you fair warning. Up until, well, this. Volume 5 was the one that people remembered. For that, though, you'll have to wait a bit. Before we finish for the day, I want to give a huge thanks, as always, to my fantastic patrons. Jake Reagan, Piece of Yeast, Elspresso, Cheerful Satanist, Starwin Marwin, Kel Core, Jacob Ramsey, Crazy, Opinion Custard, James Bakes Bread, Wargle, Lance Goebel, Paul Norberger, Rafferty, Aaron Arnold, The Hedgehog Gamer, Simone, XTC Pill, B Empress, Jake, and Cheshire Quill. If you want to see more like this, why not stick around? Subscribe, bell, you know the drill. All that good YouTube stuff. If you want to hear me say your name, get early access to most of my videos, have some fun perks on the Discord, and, you know, help Mrs. Owl and I out, or buy Baby Owl the necessaries, and ensure that I can keep on doing what I do, why not take a look at our Patreon? If you want to chit-chat about, well, basically anything, drop by our Twitch. We generally stream on Thursday evenings and Sunday afternoons, or take a look at our Discord. If you want some Mrs. Owl in your lives, well, firstly, she's taken, and secondly, why don't you pay her a visit on Saturday nights as she streams Dungeons & Dragons. Take care, my friends, and cheers. This is the Owl, signing off.